Everybody, no matter their age, wants to feel seen and heard. And when kids feel seen and heard, they feel safe. When they feel safe, they feel like they can take risks. And when they feel like they can take risks, they'll try things like writing and reading.
Play on words. Play on words. This is Play on Words from Big City Readers. Here's Miss Beth.
Welcome back to the Play on Words podcast by Big City Readers. I am your host, Miss Beth. And this podcast is not just another education podcast. This is a podcast all about helping kids in the very first stages of learning, like learning to crawl and talk, and then learning their ABCs, and then learning how to tie their shoes or how to advocate for themselves when they are going to school for the very first time, and then the learning to read journey. But it's also a podcast for parents. So this is a podcast for parents that want to learn how to help their kids, but it's also a podcast for parents who want to feel calm and empowered, and that know that getting to school or learning to read isn't the finish line, but these are the foundational steps for how kids see themselves, think about themselves, and become who they are as they go off into the world. So if you are joining for the very first time, I'm so excited that you're here. Whether you're here for a reading tip, a little pep talk, or just to feel less alone, you are in the right place. I'm Miss Beth. I'm an educator, a child development nerd, and the founder of Big City Readers, which is an early childhood education company. So today we're diving into something I get asked about all the time. Should I correct my child's spelling? You know, when your little one is like writing like love you and they write L-U-V-U. And it's so sweet. But then there comes to a point where you're like, you know what? Should they be writing this the right way? And am I holding them back by not correcting it? Or am I squashing their confidence by telling them they spelled it wrong? Do you fix it? Do you let it go? We're breaking it all down. What inventive spelling really means, what you need to know, what's appropriate, what is inappropriate. Like, should your second grader still have letter reversals or be spelling with some of the letters backwards, missing some letters, and how to know when to step in and when to take a step back. But first, let's catch up for a second because it's been a while. So actually, my life update here is something that I've been doing in my personal life that actually does have a little bit to do with spelling things wrong on purpose. So as you might know, I have a middle school bestie in my life, and I am always looking for the best ways to connect with the middle schoolers. And we talked about this a couple weeks ago, I think on Instagram stories, and how one of my tricks lately has been, when there's a bunch of middle schoolers over, you don't want to be like that, like annoying parent that's just like, hey, how's school? What's the drama? Maybe your child just directly tells you that, or maybe they don't. But the trick here is to be doing something else in the area that they're going to be. So I actually hate puzzles, but I have set up a puzzle in the living room. So whenever there's middle schoolers around, I'm just working on this puzzle. Guess what happens? They come over, they start working on the puzzle. Maybe they're not a puzzle person either, but they love to have something to do with their hands. And what do they start doing when their hands are busy? They start talking. There is a great distraction in this, and you can do this with really little kids too if you want to get them to start talking about their day. I often talk about how like the worst question is, how was your day? If you think about yourself, if you have a partner, they come in and say like, how was your day? It's like if you just got home from the office, you're like, it was fine. If you ask a more specific question, or maybe you go for a walk together, or maybe you're making dinner and then your stories just start flowing, it feels a bit easier. The kids feel the same way. Just saying like, how was your day? Like, was everybody nice to you? Like, or what's wrong? Like kids get extremely activated and they're like, let me think, did something go wrong? What's the answer they want to hear? Or please let me just be. And if that happens with you, there's nothing wrong. It's actually something very common called after school restraint collapse. And I myself experience it when I'm like working with so many people or like doing a lot of activities and I get home and I just want to be like, oh, please don't talk to me. Because if you have to be like on so much during the school day, like kids have to be. They have to be thinking about their peers. They have to be thinking about like following the rules. They have to be listening to their teacher when they say they can go to the bathroom. They eat on someone else's command. Like they don't really have any agency. So if your child like has that meltdown after school, no matter if they're 6 or 16, one, that's normal. And two, these are some of my little tricks to get them to share about their day instead of like shut down and just be mad. So sometimes you might be sitting and doing the puzzle silently together, and that's great. But another thing that I've noticed is that middle schoolers love what you're interested in. Like, love it. Like, they want to help you. So something I might do is say like, oh, I want to start riding my bike more, but I kind of feel nervous. Like, we live in Chicago. I kind of feel nervous. So I'm not like, I don't know, like I haven't ridden in a while. And guess what? Probably 9 times out of 10, your child between the ages of like, I would say 6 and 16 is going to love to help you. Like, they absolutely want to have that agency and feel confident. Like, oh, I could ride with you. I ride all the time. So that also is a great way to get them talking. Like, you're asking them for help, you're evening the playing field. So this actually connects with when kids ask you how to spell a word more than you might think, because we want to get, in general, whatever your goal is it for your child to talk to you more, to share about their day, to feel more relaxed, less anxious, to feel confident in advocating for themselves, to not have this like, my friends know how to read and I don't, or I'm so bad at this. Like, whatever you're trying to stop or ease for your child can happen from these tiny moments that actually have nothing to do with how they actually feel in those moments. So if we can make them feel calm, make them feel safe, make them feel secure, make them feel empowered in another way, they're going to feel a little bit clearer, a little bit safer, where they can share how they feel about that. So instead of the I can't do anything, we've taken a random task like, I'm feeling nervous about riding my bike in Chicago. I haven't done it in a long time. They say, oh, I can help you do that. Then we've like made this connecting piece with them, and they can go, I actually was feeling nervous about something today too. A boy asked me out, or a friend told me about something that I had not heard about. We were just making this safe space for them to talk about something that they feel uncomfortable about. Because I think, and I know, because kids have said this to me, whenever I say in a tutoring session, I'm a reading coach, but I don't really like to read. They say, that's not true. All grown-ups love to read. I'm just different. Every pushback that a child is having is them saying like, am I safe? Am I the only one like this? Or like, is what I'm feeling too big for you? Is what I'm experiencing something that no one else experiences? And they like internalize that. And the more you can show them like your insecurity, your fear, your thing that you're struggling with, that you're learning, the more they're going to feel like it's okay that they're in that stage as well. How does this compare to inventive spelling and kids learning how to spell? Well, 2 ways. One, kids think of us as knowing how to do everything and them knowing how to do nothing. And so we get this sort of resistance in like using the example of talking to middle schoolers and be like, how was your day? If we think about how like they're going to come into this conversation a little bit defensive because they're like, oh, you wouldn't get it, then we're not going to get to the point of what we want. Like, we might be like, okay, how was your day? I just want to know. Just tell me. Like, I'm just trying to help. Blah, blah, blah. They just want to feel seen and heard. Everybody, no matter their age, wants to feel seen and heard. And when kids feel seen and heard, they feel safe. When they feel safe, they feel like they can take risks. And when they feel like they can take risks, they'll try things like writing and reading. Like, learning to read is a risk. It feels like a risk. Our nervous system tells us it's a risk. It's embarrassing if we mess up. There's competition, like somebody else might be doing better than me. somebody else is like looking at it and judging me. I might feel shame if I don't know the answer. I might feel worried. I might feel alone. I might feel isolated. All of these things are activating to a child's nervous system. And it's like triggering it as if like they're being chased by a bear in the woods, but they're not. And so we forget that, adults, and we're like, just sound it out. And they feel overwhelmed. But here's the good news. You can help their nervous system and you can help them. And it might look like just spelling a word wrong on purpose. It might look like saying that you don't remember how you ride your bike. It might look like saying like, oh gosh, I can't read the recipe and do the stirring at the same time. Can you read the recipe to me? You are creating these moments of connection to make kids feel secure. And then that's where the learning can take place. So, I love to tell parents in the inventive spelling stage to not forget that we're looking for connection, right? The first thing, let's say your child spells the words the way they sound. So the word is said, and they spell it S-E-D because we know that E says eh. But the word said is spelled S-A-I-D. Should we correct it or do we leave it? So because inventive spelling is often really misunderstood, you might feel confused about this. It is not laziness. It is developmental. So when kids use inventive spelling, it shows that they're connecting the sounds to the letters, and that's a huge win. So first of all, we want to celebrate that. So the first thing I do is say, oh my gosh, I hear those sounds too. Now, this is something that would be developmentally appropriate for a 5 or sometimes 6-year-old early in first grade to do, to spell said, S-E-D. We want to make sure that kids know this, I hear those sounds too. Like that is my best phrase. Say that to them. I hear those sounds too. But only say that if you actually hear those sounds. So if they write S-E-D, you want to say, I hear those sounds too. But what do you say when they say, how do I spell it? Well, I always say, oh my gosh, that's a great question. Let's stretch it out together. So you're going to stick your hands together like the word is stuck together, and then you're going to pull it really slow. Said. And you want them to get to the place where they write S-E-D. So you're going to say, okay, let's count the sounds. Ed. You're going to use your fingers for each of the sounds. Sounds, not letters. Now, this is where it gets a little bit tricky. So we're going to use our phonemic awareness, which is the biggest predictor of reading success. And you've heard me talk about this here before, probably. But phonemic awareness comes from phoneme. So a phoneme is the smallest unit of sound. So that if we counted the phoneme or sounds in the word shoe, let's try it. Sh, oo. 2 phonemes or 2 sounds. So the reason that it's the unit of sound and not the letter is because SH is one sound. So SH is a digraph and it's one sound. OE is one sound. So it's 2 sounds, and we want to talk about the sounds, not just the letters in spelling. So if we just tell a child how to spell the word, we're missing a huge opportunity. So we want them to be thinking about the sounds, counting the sounds. So maybe you have a brand new 5-year-old and they just say said, and they only hear 2 sounds. They might just hear the beginning sound and the ending sound. That is normal. That is a developmental step in learning how to spell. So if we, so the first step is just hearing the first sound. The second step is hearing the first and last sound, and then we hear the middle sounds. So if you notice that your child is like writing P and N for pumpkin, that's a really good clue on what they're able to understand. That is the stage that they're in. They're hearing the first and the last sound. We might try some CVC words, consonant, vowel, consonant words, to see if they can try to hear the middle sound. So that would be like cat or mom or pan. So we're going to start to help them hear all those sounds. So you say, okay, the word is cat. And you don't put a word in front of them. You're just going to have them stretch it out and then count with their fingers. K, at. And you can show them physically how many sounds you hear and see if they can touch your fingers for each of the sounds. K, at. Touching each finger. If they're able to do that, then you could start to put the letters in front of them with it. So like say, okay, you heard those 3 sounds. Then let's start to write it. Now, of course, nobody has time to do this with every single word when their child asks them to spell, but this is just laying the foundation of how kids are going to start doing it themselves. So I would say aim to do this, like once a day if they're writing, especially in preschool, kindergarten, first grade. So in preschool, inventive spelling would look like maybe you are playing with your dollhouse and you take some Post-its and you start labeling the parts of the dollhouse. So like the roof or the kitchen. So you're just going to help them by asking them, what is the first sound in roof? And have them say, rrr. We want them to say the sound, not the letter. Then you're going to say, okay, what letter spells rrr? They might say R, they might not. If this is like your 3-4-year-old and you're just introducing this for the first time, you're going to help them say R spells rrr. And then you're going to show them how to write the letter R. We start our letters at the top, we write the letter R, and then we're going to stick it on the roof. Then do that with a couple of things. Keep it short and sweet. Maybe like you're going to label kitchen, roof, B for bedroom. You're just going to do the beginning sound. That's the first step. Okay, if your child can do beginning and ending sounds, maybe you're going to label other parts in your own house, like trash. Well, trash would be tricky because they might not know the SH yet, but can. Maybe they're putting CN on the can and you're going to label it around the house. This is if you want. You do not have to do this, but this would be like activities that I would do in the classroom after 3, 4. And then 5, I might start to use magnetiles and build CVC words. So hot tip, magnetiles are dry erase. So you can grab a dry erase marker and take 2, I would take 2 green magnetiles and 1 red magnetile in the middle, showing the difference of consonant, vowel, consonant, putting a change there so they see that the vowel is different, and start having them blend those CVC words that are decodable. So then when a child gets to the stage of saying, how do I spell said? Well, first of all, if they're in the CVC stage and they're not fully confident blending, I would say 80% of the letters in CVC, they're probably not ready to learn irregular patterns like AI, the spelling AI for in said. But if they are at around 80%, then I would introduce irregular spelling. So if they say, how do I spell said? Then I would say the same way that I would set it up if they're saying, how do I spell cat? I would say, let's count the sounds. So they're going to say 3 sounds. Then you're going to say, what's the first sound? S. How do you spell S? What's the last sound? D. How do you spell D? D. What's the middle sound? Eh. How do you usually spell eh? E. Okay, this is a tricky word. It's actually spelled AI, and we're going to draw a heart over it because we're going to remember that by heart. This is not a sight words episode, but this is the way that we want to teach sight words so that kids can store them in their brain and have rapid retrieval with them. We do not ever want to teach a child to memorize the whole word, only to memorize the irregular part. So I know that was a lot of information, but in inventive spelling, it would be developmentally appropriate in kindergarten for your child to write SED for said. So in the very beginning, preschool to first grade, I would say praise effort, not accuracy. Correct gently only when they're ready to learn a new pattern. We only want to hold kids accountable to words and patterns that they have learned. It would not make sense for a kindergartner to know how to spell the word magic correctly, knowing that G says the J sound when it's followed by an I, E, or Y. We'll come back to that. So I hold them accountable to what they should know. In kindergarten, they should know CVC words, and they should start to learn digraphs like SH and CH and TH. So once they've learned that pattern, then I do hold them accountable, and I'll say something like, oh, I see you wrote said. Remember, that is exactly what it sounds like. But remember, we learned that rule breaker. It's SAID. Let's fix that together. And just really lighthearted say that. In the middle stages of advanced spelling, like first and second grade, we want to begin to model more correct spelling and writing. And one way that I like to still bring confidence into this is I do only hold them accountable to spelling patterns they have learned, and they're still learning spelling patterns through second and third grade. Definitely in second grade and first grade, they should be able to do CVC words and like basic digraphs and blends like brick or wish or truck or brown. They should know those. And you could always ask your child's teacher, like, what have they learned? You should notice if you get spelling tests that come home, which sound the alarms. As you know, I hate spelling tests. But in an ideal world, you would get a spelling pattern that comes home, and your child might be tested on 20. You might get 20 words in a spelling pattern, and they might be tested on 8 of them, but you don't know the exact 8. That would be an ideal science fact of reading and writing curriculum model. But you should be able to see, based on the spelling lists that come home, what rules your child should have learned. Another way I like to practice building this confidence in inventive spelling is by having kids correct me. So if I know that they've learned SH, I'm going to write like a message on a dry erase board for them, or like in their notebook. And it might be like something silly. I might write a message for breakfast, and I might go upstairs to get ready, and then let your child correct you. Like, give them a red pen. Like, how any parent listening to this knows, kids love to correct adults. So give them the opportunity to, and on purpose, like, make some mistakes that they should know. So maybe you're going to say, I made 3 mistakes. Can you find my 3 mistakes? And then they're going to write a message back to you, and you're going to say, like, okay, I don't want to find any of your mistakes. So make sure that you get this one, like, make sure you focus on SH, whatever you're working on. But inventive spelling is kind of like using training wheels. It's a tool to get kids moving. We're not like, you wouldn't yell if your child is using training wheels on a bike. You wouldn't be like, that's not really biking. You're going to cheer for them until they're ready to balance on a 2-wheeler, right? So inventive spelling they're not going to ride a training wheel forever. And they're not going to be using inventive spelling forever, but they're not ready, and it would be inappropriate for them to spell everything perfectly. And when we just tell them, the lesson ends there. Like, they're not going to remember it just from that one time you told them. So we want kids to feel confident. We want them to feel like, I can do this on my own. I can stretch it out. I can count the sounds. And if it's not right, that's okay, because I haven't learned this pattern yet. So how you talk to your kids becomes how they talk to themselves. Like, how we talk to our kids becomes their own inner voice. And if you can model saying, like, that's a tricky one. I actually don't know that pattern myself. Or, oh, gosh, I haven't learned this one yet. Let me stretch it out with you, and then we can look it up later together. Or if you're writing the grocery list, show them how you stretch out eggs. And if you have like a really little kid that is just learning to write, I would write at their level. So you might write EGZ and say, that's how I'm going to write eggs. That's how I hear it. So they get in the habit of being like, I don't need to ask a grown up. I can trust myself. I can feel confident, and it's no big deal if I make a mistake. So many kids are so paralyzed by making mistakes, and myself included. We know that being afraid of making a mistake doesn't stop you from making a mistake. It just stops you. Like, it just stops you from doing anything. That's me with this podcast. I get so obsessed with like it being really well done that then I just don't produce any episodes. And that is no fun for anybody. Like, I like doing this. So remember, show your kids that it's okay to make a mistake by making mistakes on purpose all the time. Show them, like, model out loud, narrate for them, because they're learning how to process things in their world by how you narrate for them. So maybe that looks like when you pick them up from school, instead of saying, how was your day? You just go into a story about your day. Oh my gosh, I went to lunch today and I actually felt kind of nervous because I'd never been to this restaurant before, and it was people I don't know that well. And I was kind of like feeling a little bit stressed as I walked in. But then I remembered, like, I used my brave brain talk, and I was like, everybody is new in this group. I like trying new restaurants, and I can ask for help if I need it. So I went up to the host and I said, I'm meeting some friends, and I'm new to this restaurant. Like, I know it's really big. Like, can you show me to my table? And she walked me to the table. And I was like, I was worried for nothing. And I bet if you just then pause and leave a little room in your story, in your dialogue, without saying, have you felt like that? Because, nobody likes to be set up like that. You might have nothing. You might have crickets from your child. They might say, that's stupid. I'm not afraid of going to a restaurant. They might say like, you know what? Actually, I felt that way today too, because we had to go to a different classroom for math class, and I'm not usually in that classroom, and I kind of felt nervous too. And then you get to have that dialogue with them, and you opened that door by talking about yourself instead. So I often will be like, oh, this is hard for me, but probably not for you. And then it gives a kid an opportunity to be like, actually, it is hard for me. Can you help me with this? Or they share so much more than you would have thought if you just said, how was your day? So this is your permission slip to make mistakes on purpose, to model how you're thinking out loud in front of your child, and to spell something wrong. And let's be honest, it's not that hard for me to do. Okay, let's do some red flag, green flags to figure out which spelling habits are actually helpful and which are just stressing everyone out. Okay. Correcting every word on your child's paper. Red flag, green flag. It's a red flag. This overcorrection is just teaching our child to be afraid of making mistakes. So green flag would be letting them freely write and asking you about one or two words later, or you looking and writing or circling one or two words that you know that they should know how to do. Like if they've learned SH and they spell wish, W-I-C-H instead of W-I-S-H, looking at their paper and saying like, oh, I noticed two patterns that I know you are already an expert on. I want you to go back and fix them. So just that little shift in how we say it to them, like not like, oh, you misspelled that, but, oh, I know that you know that. That little shift is going to give them a lot more confidence as well. Okay, telling kids you did that wrong. Red flag, in my opinion. Saying to them instead, that's what it sounds like. English can be a little tricky. Can I teach you this rule? Green flag. Oh, that perfection. Okay, assuming that inventive spelling means your child is behind, red flag. That's not true. Inventive spelling is so developmental through third grade. Green flag parent moment is when you recognize that it is a developmental milestone and that it's so beautiful to get to watch their spelling shift as they grow. So speaking of English rules, let's do a quick hot take book break. Hot take book break is where I tell you what is actually worth reading and what belongs in the trash, in my opinion. That book for me today is The Rainbow Fish. I was at a baby shower recently and I saw 4 copies of The Rainbow Fish given as a gift and I wanted to scream, but that is not really great party etiquette. So I just pretended that I thought it was cute and sweet. But I think that The Rainbow Fish belongs in the trash, respectfully. Basically, maybe it's a personal problem of why I hate The Rainbow Fish, but I think that the moral of the story is don't shine too bright or people won't like you. And as somebody who is big and bubbly and brings a lot of energy into a room, that is something that I was told as a child. And so any book that mimics that moral of the story is going to be a hard pass for me. So there's your hot take, Rainbow Fish in the trash. Instead, I think a great book to give at a baby shower would be The Wonderful Things You Will Be. It talks about how no matter what you are, if you're big, if you're small, if you're loud, if you're quiet, if you're brave, if you're scared, there are so many wonderful things you will be, and that the person reading it to them is going to love all of those things about them. So ditch the Rainbow Fish, gift the wonderful things you will be, and I promise you are slowly going to be changing the future generation. Okay, so that's all I have for you for today. Here is your parent permission slip. You have permission to make mistakes in front of your child. You have permission to let your child spell things wrong and still put that beautiful piece of writing up on the fridge, because that is developmentally appropriate, that is exciting, and that is so sweet to see how their brain is thinking about how that word is spelled. So put it up, celebrate it, and be proud of them. If they say, is it right? You can say, I hear those sounds too. If they aren't satisfied with that answer, then you can say, okay, this word is spelled a little bit differently. I'm going to teach you the rule. Come sit next to me and tell them like, oh, you're such a good word detective that you noticed that. You read a lot of books. You practice writing. I can't believe that you noticed that. That is amazing. Let me teach you this rule. And then tell them the rule. And then next time they write that way, you hold them accountable because you taught them that rule. So thank you so much for submitting your questions. I loved answering this question. Thank you for listening to the Play on Words podcast from Big City Readers. I'm Miss Beth. And if you learned something today, please share this episode with a friend or post your favorite takeaway and tag me at Big City Readers. I love to hear where you are in the world, what you're liking from this podcast, and it helps me think of what we want to talk about for next time. So I will see you next week, and send me your questions as they come up. Okay? Happy reading.